You're lost. This showroom isn't for people like you." The words cracked through the air like glass shattering on marble. 11:03 a.m. inside the chandelier-lit luxury dealership, those 5 words weren't whispered, weren't cautious. They were sharp, loud, meant to humiliate. They hit Marcus Reed, but not the way the manager thought. Marcus had heard them before, in different accents, different rooms. At 23, when he tried to lease his first office space and was told, "Not the image we're looking for." At 29, when he walked into a boardroom and the receptionist asked if he was lost. And now, standing in a room filled with million-dollar machines and million-dollar egos, it came again. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus. He didn't flinch. 6 feet tall, broad shoulders under a tailored navy jacket. Marcus stood still, his calm a deliberate contrast to the chaos the manager tried to spark. His clothes weren't flashy, no designer logos, no gold watch, just a fitted blazer, dark jeans, polished shoes, understated, intentional. Across from him, Richard Hale, the gray-haired showroom manager, smirked, enjoying the audience he had gathered. A blonde woman in a pearl gray suit covered her mouth, laughing like she'd just witnessed a joke at a dinner party. Several salesmen leaned against gleaming cars, their crossed arms and amused glances saying it all, "He doesn't belong here." Marcus's silence didn't calm the room. It charged it. Phones lifted subtly. One young associate whispered to another, "Should I film this?" A teenage customer, standing beside his father, mouthed, "That's messed up." But the ridicule didn't stop. Richard stepped closer, his voice carrying, "Men who buy here don't walk in off the street looking like that. Do yourself a favor and head back to the used lot." The words hung, thick as smoke. The laugh from the woman grew louder. Someone snickered near the red Ferrari by the wall. Marcus finally moved. Not a retreat, not anger. Just a slow, steady inhale, the kind that carried 20 years of restraint. His eyes dark, unwavering, locked on Richard. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to explain. Because Marcus Reed wasn't just browsing. He was the man whose signature had pulled a $6 billion distribution deal with this very car brand. And in a few minutes, the people mocking him would find out the hard way. Richard didn't stop. He leaned forward, his tone dripping with condescension. "Men like you don't close deals in here. You window shop, you dream, then you walk out. That's the truth." Marcus didn't respond. His stillness was unnerving, like steel bolted into the floor. It wasn't weakness, it was calculation. Across the showroom, a salesman in a tailored vest muttered under his breath, just loud enough to travel. Bet his credit card declines before he even touches a key. Laughter rippled between 2 other employees. A younger associate, maybe 24, shifted uncomfortably near the polished glass wall. He recognized Marcus's face, though he couldn't place it. "I've seen him before? Forbes? Bloomberg?" He raised his phone halfway, then hesitated. Should he record? His fingers trembled, caught between career risk and conscience. Near the entrance, a middle-aged couple whispered, "Why are they treating him like that?" The husband frowned. "Because they think they can." Richard's voice cut again. "Tell you what, security's just 1 call away. Save us the trouble and leave now." Marcus finally tilted his head, slow and deliberate. He picked up the discarded folder the staff had mocked earlier, brushed off an imaginary speck of dust, and placed it neatly on the nearest counter. His composure didn't falter, but the room was shifting, every insult layered over the last like fuel on a fire. Phones angled higher. A nervous hush spread. People sensed the storm building, even if they didn't yet understand who they were dealing with. A flash of memory pressed against Marcus's calm. Age 25. A receptionist blocking his path into a high-rise lobby. Deliveries through the service entrance. Not here. He'd been carrying a pitch deck worth millions. The sting then was sharp. Today, it was armor. Richard mistook the silence for surrender. He smirked. "What, nothing to say? That's what I thought." Finally, Marcus spoke. His voice was quiet but sharp enough to cut through the marble air. "Run my name." The room stilled. The young associate's eyes widened. He knew exactly what that meant. Richard scoffed. "Run your name? On what system? You think we waste our time verifying walk-ins?" He waved dismissively at a nearby salesman. "He's not a buyer. He's a pretender." The laughter tried to rise again, but it landed hollow this time. Too many eyes, too many phones. Marcus adjusted his cufflink, his gaze steady. Then this will be your last mistake. The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. They carried the weight of inevitability. A ripple moved through the room. Phones weren't just raised now, they were recording. The red glow of tiny cameras turned the showroom into a stage. Richard noticed, his smirk faltering for the first time. He raised his voice, hoping volume would drown out doubt. This man is wasting our time. He doesn't have an appointment, no proof of funds, nothing. He's loitering, throw him out. A salesman named Derek, tall and sharp-suited, stepped forward with a sneer. Look at the shoes. Not even Italian. He's here to take pictures, maybe beg for a test drive. That's it. The laughter returned, thinner but still cutting. A woman in designer heels shook her head, whispering, "It's embarrassing." Marcus remained steady, his calm cutting deeper than anger ever could. By the window, the young associate with the phone shifted. He wanted to speak but didn't yet. His lips moved silently. Say something. Then another voice broke through. A customer, mid-30s, Latino, holding his toddler's hand. His tone was low but clear enough. He hasn't done anything wrong. You're just harassing him. The toddler tugged at his sleeve, looking up with wide eyes. The father whispered to his son, "Watch closely. This is what disrespect looks like." Richard's face hardened. He pointed at Marcus like a judge delivering sentence. "Sir, leave now or I'll have security escort you out. You're not a buyer. You're a fraud." The word fraud hit the room like a hammer. Gasps rippled. A young woman near the reception desk muttered, "Did he really just say that?" Marcus blinked once, slowly. His voice was steady when it came. "You've mistaken quiet for weakness. That's your last mistake." But Richard doubled down, sensing the tide turn. He grabbed the folder from the counter and flipped it open, waving it theatrically. "What is this papers you printed at home? Fake contracts? This means nothing." He tossed the folder back toward Marcus. It slid across the polished floor and stopped at his feet. Marcus bent down, not rushed, not rattled. He picked it up, dusted the corner, and tucked it under his arm. His silence was louder than Richard's theatrics. Across the room, someone whispered, "This feels wrong, really wrong." Another voice added, "It's all on video." The atmosphere wasn't quiet anymore. It was electric charged, waiting, and Marcus knew exactly when to strike. Richard's voice rose, brittle with false authority. "Security! Now!" He barked toward the reception desk. A young salesman fumbled for the phone, but before he could dial, Marcus pulled his own device from his pocket. Calm, deliberate. He pressed a single button. "Rachel," he said, voice smooth as steel. "Initiate protocol." On the other end, his executive assistant didn't hesitate. "Understood, Marcus. Contract verification in motion. Audit logging live." The words weren't loud, but in the hushed waiting room they carried. Several people froze. The young associate with the phone-mouthed protocol, like he had just stumbled into a different movie. Richard scoffed, trying to laugh it off. "You hear that? Protocol. He's playing make-believe." He turned to the crowd. "This is a con. Classic. He's stalling until we drag him out." But the laughter didn't land this time. Too many eyes were on Marcus. Too many phones pointed in his direction. Marcus adjusted his blazer, his gaze fixed on Richard. "Every word you've spoken is being logged. Every insult, every accusation. You may want to choose your next sentence carefully." A hush swept the floor. For the first time, Richard faltered. His smirk twitched, his hand tightening at his side. Still, he tried again. "He's bluffing. Look at him. No paperwork, no account, nothing. He doesn't even look like a client." The young father from earlier spoke up again. "He doesn't look like a liar either. Maybe you should listen." Phones lifted higher. A woman whispered into her mic, "We're watching a manager dig his own grave." Marcus's voice broke the silence again, calm but commanding. "Rachel, confirm the deal." Rachel's reply was crisp. "Confirmed. Horizon Automotive contract, $6 billion valuation, signed under Reed Global Enterprises. Documents are live in the system now. Corporate compliance notified." Gasps echoed. The young associate nearly dropped his phone. His eyes darted to Marcus, then to Richard, back to Marcus again. Richard's face drained. "That's impossible," he muttered, but the words lacked conviction. Marcus took one step forward, steady as if the polished floor belonged to him. His tone cut clean, undeniable. "You called me a fraud in a showroom I own." The air shifted. Clients in the corner began to clap, soft at first, then louder. The tide had turned. For a beat, the room stood frozen. The words hung heavier than the chandelier light above them. The young associate finally spoke, his voice shaky but clear. I know him. He's Marcus Reed. He was on Forbes last year." His phone, still recording, trembled in his hand. Murmurs erupted. A customer near the silver Aston Martin whispered, "Wait, he's the one who signed that global deal?" Another leaned closer. $6 billion. Horizon Automotive. That's him. Richard's composure cracked. His smirk melted into something jagged, desperate. "You're all being fooled," he snapped. "It's a stunt. He's lying." But the crowd didn't buy it. Not anymore. The young father holding his toddler stepped forward, his voice firm. "No, what's happening is you tried to humiliate him, in public, and now it's backfiring." Richard's cheeks flushed crimson. He turned sharply to his staff. "Why are you just standing there? Get security now." Derek, the salesman who mocked Marcus's shoes, shifted uneasily. His earlier arrogance had evaporated. What if he's telling the truth?" Richard glared. "Don't be naive, he's bluffing." But even Derek's eyes betrayed doubt. Marcus didn't move. He didn't need to. He let the silence do its work. Rachel's voice still hummed faintly from his phone speaker, efficient and unshaken. "All records logged, corporate monitoring active, media inquiries already flagged." That was enough. The atmosphere fractured completely. Guests whispered louder, phones filmed openly, and the weight of public opinion pressed against the staff like a rising tide. Then the woman in the pearl gray suit, the one who laughed first, lowered her hand from her mouth. Her voice was softer now, brittle with shame. We didn't know." Marcus's eyes met hers, cold but calm. "That's the point. You never asked. You assumed." The words landed harder than any shout. A burst of applause broke from the corner, 2 young customers clapping, then more joining in. The sound grew, sharp and undeniable. Richard stood pale, caught between anger and panic, while Marcus remained steady as stone. The tide had turned, and this was only the beginning. Richard's voice cracked against the rising applause. "Enough!" he barked, his face red, sweat collecting at his temple. "This man is a fraud. You're all falling for a performance. He's nobody." Nobody. The word echoed like an insult flung at the entire room. Marcus didn't move. His calm was sharper now, almost dangerous. Richard, cornered, lashed out again. He jabbed a finger at Marcus's chest but stopped short of contact. "You think saying big numbers makes you powerful? Show us a bank statement. Show us a title. Show us anything." Derek, the salesman who had mocked Marcus earlier, tried to step in. His voice shook. "Maybe we should verify, Richard, just to be sure." Richard spun on him, furious. "Don't you dare. He's nothing but a con artist." The crowd stirred. A woman near the Maserati whispered, "Why is he panicking if he's so sure?" Another man muttered, "Because he knows he's wrong." The young associate with the phone couldn't hold it anymore. His voice broke across the floor. "You keep calling him a fraud, but he's the reason we have this showroom at all." Gasps rippled. Richard's eyes went wide. "What did you say?" The associate swallowed, then steadied his voice. "I read the acquisition file. Reed Global owns distribution rights. If he's Marcus Reed, then he doesn't just belong here, he runs here." Phones shot higher. Customers exchanged stunned looks. Even Derek stepped back, color draining from his face. Richard tried one last swing, his words desperate. "This is absurd. He doesn't look the part. No billionaire dresses like that. He's faking it. Security will prove me right." Marcus finally lifted his phone higher, Rachel's voice still clear on speaker. "Marcus, corporate just confirmed the incident. Compliance flagged biased language, logged in real time. Legal's already reviewing." The words silenced the room. Every syllable cut through the pretense Richard was clinging to. Marcus's gaze locked on the manager. His tone was low, steady, but every word carried weight. "You keep demanding proof. You'll get it. But ask yourself this, why do you think you have the right to decide who belongs?" Richard's mouth opened, but no words came out. The room had shifted. His authority wasn't just questioned, it was gone. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. All eyes were on Marcus, still anchored in place, blazer crisp, gaze unshaken. Then Richard broke it, his voice cracking with desperation. You're wasting everyone's time. This man is a thief. Call the police. Oh, the word thief detonated in the room. Phones zoomed closer. Customers gasped. The toddler clutched tighter to his father's hand. Marcus finally rose from his stillness. He adjusted his cuff, straightened his shoulders, and spoke not loud, but absolute. You want proof? Here at Island. I am Marcus Reed, CEO of Reed Global Enterprises, the company that owns distribution rights to every vehicle in this showroom. Every deal you brag about runs through me. The words landed like thunder. The young associate whispered, I knew it, his phone still recording. The father with the toddler nodded, pride swelling in his voice. That's the man who signs their checks. Richard's face drained of color. His mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping on dry land. Derek stepped back, his earlier smirk gone. Oh my God, he muttered, voice hollow. The woman in the pearl gray suit who had laughed the loudest at the start covered her face, shame flooding her features. And then, like a fuse catching, the room erupted. Applause rose, sharp and undeniable. Customers clapped, some cheered, others simply nodded in respect. Phones captured every angle, every word. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't gloat. His eyes swept the room, steady as stone. The problem isn't that you didn't know who I was. The problem is how you treated me when you thought I was nobody. The clapping grew louder, echoing against marble floors and glass walls. Richard stumbled back, his authority shattered. His staff stared at him, no longer allies but witnesses. The tide had turned completely. Marcus let the silence reclaim the space, his presence filling it more powerfully than any luxury car could. The truth was out, and the reckoning had only just begun. The applause still echoed when Richard snapped back, voice ragged with panic. Don't believe him. He's bluffing. You think some billionaire just strolls in here dressed like that? He's lying. But the crowd wasn't with him anymore. The applause slowed, but the eyes stayed fixed on Marcus, not him. Rachel's voice carried again from the phone in Marcus's hand, calm and professional. Marcus, confirmation complete. Corporate compliance has flagged Richard Hale, Derek Yates, and 2 additional staff for discriminatory conduct. Internal report filed. Do you want me to proceed with access termination? The room froze. Everyone heard it. Every syllable was undeniable. Richard's face drained. Wait, that's not real. You can't do this. His words tumbled over each other, frantic, brittle. Marcus turned his gaze on him, steady and cold. I already did. A sharp buzz broke the silence, the sound of Richard's showroom badge deactivating. He looked down at the plastic card in his hand, swiped it against the reader by the office door. Red light, access denied. The crowd gasped. Derek tried his own badge. Red. His jaw dropped. Phones zoomed closer. Customers whispered, It's live. It's happening right now. Richard staggered back, his authority crumbling with every second. This isn't fair. You can't humiliate us like this. Marcus's tone cut through him, calm but merciless. Fair? You humiliated yourself the moment you decided I didn't belong. Today, you learned you never had the power to decide that. The young associate who had recognized Marcus earlier finally stepped forward, his voice clear. Sir, for the record, I saw it all. He told you to run his name, and you refused. You mocked him in front of everyone, and now it's logged. The crowd murmured, a chorus of agreement. The father with the toddler raised his phone higher. It's justice. We're witnessing justice. Richard, red-faced and trembling, tried one last play. This is entrapment. You set us up. Marcus didn't flinch. No, I tested you, and you failed. The weight of the words fell across the showroom like a verdict. Rachel's voice came again, crisp as glass. Marcus, HR requires confirmation of their termination. Do you authorize immediate dismissal? Every ear in the room strained to hear. Marcus's jaw tightened. He spoke slow, deliberate. Terminate Richard Hale. Terminate Derek Yates. Effective immediately. Remove their credentials. They no longer represent this brand. The phones buzzed. Notifications pinged. Within seconds, both men's company accounts went dark. Their digital lives erased in real time. Richard's badge hit the floor with a hollow clatter. Derek's face went gray. Customers erupted again, clapping, cheering, some shaking their heads in awe. The moment felt surreal, cinematic, but absolutely real. Richard's voice cracked as he stumbled back, eyes darting wildly. You can't. This is my showroom. Marcus stepped forward, his presence towering, unshaken. Correction. This is my showroom. And today, everyone here saw the truth. Oh. The words weren't shouted, but they hit harder than any roar. Phones recorded. Clients smiled. The staff who hadn't spoken stood silent, guilty by association. And Marcus Reed, calm, collected, unshakable, had just dismantled an empire of arrogance in front of everyone. The showroom had turned into a courtroom, and Marcus was the judge, jury, and executioner, though he hadn't raised his voice once. Richard staggered back, pale as marble, clutching his useless badge. Derek leaned against a display case, his breath shallow, sweat beading along his hairline. Both men looked smaller than they had minutes before, stripped of their arrogance, stripped of their power. Security finally appeared, two men in black suits moving quickly from the back hallway. They paused, uncertain. They'd been summoned by Richard, but the moment they saw Marcus, and the sea of phones pointed toward him, they knew. They weren't there to escort Marcus out. They were there to escort Richard. One security guard stepped forward. "Mr. Reed, how do you want us to proceed?" Gasps rippled. The formality, the respect, it was undeniable now. Richard's jaw dropped. "No, you answer to me. I'm the manager here." The guard shook his head steady. "Not anymore, sir." The father with the toddler let out a sharp laugh, clapping once. "That's what you get." His son echoed the clap, giggling without understanding, but the crowd felt the weight of it. Derek tried to plead. "Mr. Reed, I didn't mean anything by it. I was following Richard's lead. Please, don't end my career over this." Marcus's eyes cut to him, steady as a blade. "You mocked me before you knew my name. That was your choice." Derek swallowed hard. His knees nearly buckled. Behind them, the young associate phone, still recording, finally stepped fully into the light. His voice was stronger now, emboldened by the truth. "I'll testify if needed. I saw the whole thing. And for the record, Mr. Reed, not all of us here agreed with how they treated you." Marcus's gaze softened, just slightly. "Noted," the crowd murmured, approval flowing toward the young man's courage. A woman whispered. He spoke up. Finally. Richard broke again, his voice shrill, almost childlike. "This isn't legal. You can't fire me in public. I'll sue." Marcus didn't blink. "Sue if you like, but every word you said is already logged. Every insult recorded, every action witnessed." He gestured subtly to the phones circling him. "And I promise you this truth is undefeated." The guard placed a hand on Richard's arm. "Time to leave, sir." Richard jerked away, sputtering nonsense, but his fight was gone. Derek followed, silent, his head bowed, the weight of humiliation heavy on his shoulders. As they were led out, the crowd erupted again, not just applause this time, but cheers. One man shouted, "That's justice." Another said, "About time someone held them accountable." The young father lifted his toddler onto his shoulders. "Remember this, kiddo," he said softly. "Dignity doesn't wear a label." Marcus stood in the center, calm, collected, watching the tide roll. He didn't gloat, didn't smile. His silence was enough. Phones continued to record, not out of curiosity now, but out of reverence. They wanted to capture this moment, not the downfall of Richard, but the rise of a truth too long ignored. And Marcus Reed, the man they mocked minutes ago, had become the embodiment of it. The echoes of applause still rolled through the showroom as the doors closed behind Richard and Derek. But the air wasn't settled, it was waiting. Every eye stayed on Marcus, as though they knew the story wasn't finished. Rachel's voice came softly through his phone again, precise and professional. "Marcus, system access for terminated staff has been revoked. Do you want me to escalate with corporate contracts, supplier notes, everything tied to this branch?" Marcus let the words breathe, then answered with the same calm steel he had carried all along. "Yes, freeze their pending commissions, flag their files for permanent review, and log this footage under official evidence." A murmur surged through the crowd. It wasn't theater anymore, it was real power, exercised in real time. The pearl gray suited woman who had laughed at him earlier shifted uneasily. "Mr. Reed," she stammered, "I didn't mean any harm. I was just going along with the mood." Marcus's gaze slid toward her, sharp and cold. "That's the problem. You laughed at humiliation because you thought it was safe. Silence is bad enough. Complicity is worse." Her face crumpled, shame burning across her cheeks. She dropped her eyes to the floor. The young associate stepped closer, his phone lowered now. Mr. Reed, if you'll allow me, I'd like to stay, to help rebuild what they broke. His voice cracked with sincerity. Marcus studied him, then gave a small nod. Integrity isn't in the title. It's in the choices you make when no one's watching. You spoke up when it mattered. That's the kind of man this brand needs. The crowd nodded. Some even clapped softly again, moved not just by the punishment but by the fairness threading through his words. Rachel's voice returned, final and clear. Marcus, corporate compliance has confirmed your authorization. This branch is officially under your direct oversight until new management is assigned. Richard's shadow was gone. Derek's laughter was gone. And in their place, the truth stood, recorded from every angle. Marcus Reed was not only the man they mocked, he was the man who owned the room. The lesson was carved deep into the marble silence. Justice didn't need volume, it needed presence. And Marcus Reed embodied it. The tension that had once filled the showroom dissolved into something new, respect, raw and undeniable. The same people who had whispered, who had doubted, now stepped closer. Voices rising not in mockery but in solidarity. A man near the Maserati spoke first. I've been a client here for years. I've never seen anything like this. You handled it without yelling, without threats. That's real leadership. Others nodded. A woman clutching her purse added, the way they treated you was disgusting. Thank you for showing them what dignity looks like. The young father with the toddler lifted his son a little higher, his voice carrying across the marble floor. Son, you saw that? That's what strength looks like. Not fists, not shouting, just truth standing taller than lies. The crowd murmured in agreement. Phones kept recording, but now it wasn't just scandal they wanted, it was inspiration. The young associate still stood near Marcus, his voice steady this time. Mr. Reed, you've changed how I see this place. I won't forget it. Marcus gave him the smallest nod, acknowledgement without ceremony. Then make sure no one else forgets either. Applause broke out again, louder this time, swelling like a tide. People clapped not just for Marcus, but for the moment, for the justice they'd been starved to witness in real time. The pearl gray-suited woman who had laughed at him earlier stepped forward, her voice small, heavy with regret. I was wrong. I judged you before I even knew you. I'll never make that mistake again. Marcus's eyes met hers, calm but cutting. The lesson isn't about me. It's about everyone who walks through these doors. If respect has conditions, it isn't respect. Her lips trembled, but she nodded, humbled. Rachel's voice came once more through the phone, almost ceremonial now. Marcus, social media is already trending. The clip has thousands of views in minutes. Do you want me to continue the release? Marcus glanced at the sea of phones still pointed his way. No need. They'll tell the story themselves. The crowd erupted in cheers again. Some shook his hand, others simply nodded, eyes bright with admiration. The same showroom that had tried to shame him minutes ago was now united around him, transformed not by force, but by truth revealed. The air was still thick with the echoes of applause when Marcus finally lifted his hand, and the room fell silent again. No one left. No one dared move. Dozens of eyes, some filled with awe, others heavy with shame, stayed locked on him. Even the cars, those gleaming machines meant to be the stars of the showroom, seemed to fade into the background. The only thing that mattered now was the man they had underestimated. Marcus's voice was calm, measured, each word slicing cleaner than any shout could. You mocked the man who keeps your lights on. You dismissed the one who signs the contracts that pay your wages. You decided I didn't belong here because of what I wore, because of what you assumed, and that assumption cost you everything. No one spoke. The pearl gray-suited woman bowed her head, too ashamed to meet his eyes. Derek, slumped by the wall, stared at the floor like it could swallow him whole. The young associate stood straighter, proud that he had spoken up when others didn't. Marcus's gaze swept slowly across the faces in the room. The problem was never that you didn't know my name. The problem is how you treated me when you thought I was nobody. A murmur rippled through the crowd, soft and uneasy. Some customers nodded, the truth sinking deeper than marble into bone. He adjusted his cufflink, then continued, steady and deliberate. Respect that only exists when you see money, when you see power, when you see status that isn't respect. That's performance. And I don't reward performance. I reward character. The words landed heavy, undeniable. The young father shifted his son on his shoulders and whispered loud enough for the people around him to hear. You hear that? That's the kind of man worth following. That's the kind of power worth respecting. Marcus turned slightly, letting his words cut deeper still. Today you learned something. Silence doesn't mean surrender, it means patience. And patience, when it ends, becomes power. Remember that the next time you think you can decide who belongs. The pearl gray-suited woman finally broke, her voice trembling. "Mr. Reed, I'm sorry. I'll never make that mistake again." Marcus looked at her, not unkindly, but without flinching. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the next man you judge too quickly, because next time you may not get the chance to undo it." The words hung in the air like scripture. Phones stayed lifted, recording not for gossip anymore, but because they knew they were capturing something that mattered. Marcus drew one final breath, then gave his closing verdict. "I don't need to record this moment. I am the record, and every single one of you will carry it with you." The crowd parted as he moved toward the door. Every step echoed on polished marble, slow, deliberate, dignified. No one blocked him. No one spoke. They simply watched. When the doors closed behind him, the lesson remained carved into the silence. Dignity doesn't need volume. Justice doesn't beg for attention. Power doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself quietly, completely, unmistakably. And Marcus Reed had revealed it all.